All right, hello, and welcome back to the Couples Money Revelation podcast. And today we have a very special guest, another financial coach, which I love bringing on financial coach. I told you guys I'd have a ton of guests this season, really focusing on relationships around money and what the process looks like that. And today we have Lupe Saenz, fresh out of California, a long way from me. And she's a financial coach I met through our coaching group here nationwide and actually countrywide, worldwide, everything like that. And yeah, Lupe, thank you for joining us. And before we get into a great discussion that I know we're going to have, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, your coaching, and your business and everything? So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, for having me, inviting me. I'm excited for this. Yeah, so my name is Lupe Saenz, and the name of my business is Money Renovation. And I help women who, feel, as you know, stressed and overwhelmed with their money, and I help them gain clarity and control over their money. Um, but even though my focus is just women, it's kind of, um, I've also helped a few couples, and it kind of goes all over the spectrum. But yeah, that's a little bit of um, who I am.
Awesome. Yes. Lupe and I have always bounced off a lot of ideas off of each other over the last couple of years, and I appreciate all the insight she gives, and hopefully I think she's going to give some great commentary to what we're going to discuss today. So today, we kind of determined it together. That's what financial coaches do, right? We don't just kind of say, "Hey, come on my podcast, here it is." We actually talk about what would be most beneficial based on what I really focus on and what Lupe focuses on, and we kind of came to the conclusion of the importance of the journey of money. And what that means to us is we're going to talk about how it's so important to start young, but also communicate young. So when you get to your older ages, your retirement ages, your maybe 60s, 70s and on, you're not lost or one of you isn't lost. Heaven forbid if something happens down the road to someone and they were the one running the money, maybe the other person isn't going to be kind of lost in the weeds. And so I'm going to start off with a quick little statement that of what I've been really focusing on in my coaching early on, and then we'll just have a discussion. I'll ask you what you think about it, Lupe. But I've been really focusing on the early parts of the journey of relationships, and it can be, it doesn't have to be young Gen Zs, right? It doesn't have to be freshly engaged, married people that are 18, 19, 21, 24. I mean, people start their relationship, eHarmony, the dating websites at 30s and 40s and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
remarry and all that stuff. So this is for everybody with that. And basically, the focus is understanding that when you start to get serious in your relationship, maybe a few months in, 6 months in, all of a sudden you're engaged, you better start discussing your money and you better just start discussing the importance of, hey, I'm going to be with you the rest of your life. We're getting married or, we're going to be partners for the rest of the life. I want to know a little bit about everything you have because there's nothing that's going to be hidden from either of you. And if you're not good with money, you better get good with money because both of you should be on the same page and both of you should be working hard at those double joint finances, as I call them. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Do you have any insight on that, Lupe? And what would you suggest based on, I mean, your relationship over the years? I can give my feedback on mine. What do you think about
Hmm.
that general category?
Yeah, no, it's very important. I think that's like one of the conversation, like a must-have conversations with those couples that are looking to get married, especially if you are engaged and getting married soon. My own experience, I have a blended family. So my husband had three kids, I had one, and we knew that we wanted to get married, and I feel like it was kind of like we both were on the same page, and the conversation about money came up, and my husband had a mess with his finances. I remember having a conversation in the couch, and I started writing all of his things, and he was the type of person who would like pay half of his rent here, and to be honest with you, that did scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
But we were both in the same page when it came down to look at, okay, we're gonna get married and we need to make this work. Um, so I helped them, get in order with his finances. And by the time we got married, we combined our bank accounts and we started, working together. And then everything kind of fell down because we both got ourselves into a lot, like together, we managed to get ourselves into a lot of debt together.
Hmm.
We didn't make the best decisions together. Um, and then until we realized, you know what, the 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 weight of this debt just felt so heavy. And we had at that time we had four kids and I was pregnant of one.
Oh,
And I was put in bed rest to
oh
make it
my.
worse. And so that was kind of where our finances went down the hill. And and then after that it was we both realized that like, hey, we got to do something about it. But we've always been on the same page ever since, from the time I was sitting down in the couch with him writing down all of his expenses and everything, all his debts and all that, to the time where we both managed to get ourselves in a hole and then managed ourselves to get out. We've always been on the same page, but I know that there's a lot of couples that are not. So what do you
Right.
do then, right? Like how would you lead that conversation? For my husband and I, it was pretty easy because we both knew, but I know that there's a lot of couples that are not. So how would you lead that conversation with someone that wants to and someone that doesn't? What would you say to that?
Well, first, I will get into that because that's what I've been discussing a lot in my coaching and on my posts and stuff. But I want to ask you a quick follow-up question for the people to hear is, well, first of all, you guys basically, and I tell a lot of people this, right? I coach a lot of people this saying, like, life happened, right? I mean, you guys knew
Mm-hmm.
what you had to do, but things happened. You had kids, you were
Mm-hmm.
bed rested. I mean, that's the scary part of what people have to see is you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. You never know what next week's going to bring. You never know what next month's going to bring. You could all of a sudden lose your job. You could go on disability. You could like, are you prepared for that moment where everything kind of goes downhill? And how are you going to kind of recover and go back
Mm-hmm.
up the hill like that? The only thing I would ask you, just because I'm curious, is, and I'll tell you my story afterwards, and I'll answer the question, is, looking back at it, just for the people, would there be ha would there have been anything in those early ages, early times, you and your husband that you know, you would have changed and maybe said, "Hey, looking back at it, I wish we should have done this instead to kind of jumpstart our finances a little bit better."
Well, one thing I can say is when I became pregnant and I was put into bed rest,
Yeah.
I wish we both would have sat down and looked at our finances and see where we could cut and or where the things that we needed to cut back on because we didn't. We just continued life as it was.
Yep.
We didn't um reassess like our lifestyle.
Hmm.
And I've mentioned this, I've mentioned this before, that we would just pay the minimum to our credit card only to reuse it again and again. And the reason for
Yeah.
that is because we only had three of the kids on the weekends, and guilt was one of the things that we felt guilty because we didn't have them all week, and they would come with us on the weekends, and we felt bad not doing anything with them.
Right.
So we would rely on the credit card. But if we would have sat down and be like, okay, you're in bed rest, you're gonna make like less than half of what you used to make. We
Right.
need to adjust our lifestyle. We never adjusted. And if I look back and I think like, man, if we would have sat down and adjusted our lifestyle, things would have looked different. But we didn't. We just continued living on like, you know,
That's
living
how
on.
that's how it is, especially the last few
Hmm.
years. So I'm gonna swing back and answer your question right now, and then I'll kind of give you my example of that real quick, and
Okay.
then we'll kind of journey down here. But yeah, I mean, I've said this quote millions of times, maybe not millions, but like on all my podcasts and everyone guests I've had and all that, and I may have told you this, I don't remember, maybe not recently, but when we were talking about like Jim Carrey has a famous quote that says like if you're not willing to change your lifestyle for 1 year to live a life of your dreams for the rest of your life, basically you care too much about what other people in the society think of you, essentially. And it's a
100%.
really great line that he uses, whether you
Hmm.
like the guy or not, but I mean, it kind of steers towards that. It's like, okay, we have to. So I'm going to answer your question right now. because what Lupe said is like nailing it. The last 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years with inflation going up and stuff like that is we spent like we kept going. Like, we kept
Mm-hmm.
spending and spending and spending like our lifestyle never changed. And we all
Mm-hmm.
know if you look at the stats the last 2.5 years with inflation, you can't do that. It's simply you had to make a lot of adjustments with the groceries going way up, restaurants going
Mm-hmm.
way up, goods going way up,
Coffee.
preschool, yeah, preschool, coffee, all these necessities, preschool, everything that went
Yeah.
up to cover the
Yeah.
cost of all the businesses and living and stuff like that. We just a lot of us just kept going and going and
Mm-hmm.
spending, saying we were good. Well, what happened all of a sudden the last few years?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't make the adjustments.
Right.
And so when you go back to your question originally, I think to get the most important to that answer on there right there is if you need it, how do you get someone on the same page? Like if your spouse is just like spender, 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 and you're like, hey, we gotta do something, hey, we gotta do something, hey, we gotta do
Mm-hmm.
something. Obviously, you're just clashing, clashing, clashing. I think that's early on in my personal coaching. What I've been focusing on a lot
Mm-hmm.
the spending habits and the money mindset. Those are the two
Mm-hmm.
most important things. The numbers are what they are. I know people might not like that phrase, but they are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Your debt is what you is, or what is what it is, excuse me. And the only way you're going to change that is if both of you, because now you're in a relationship, both of you want to make the change and you want to look
Right.
to the future. And so when we go through a lot of coaching in my program, it basically is really starting to focus lately in the last year or so about goals and like setting goals for each other and then saying, okay, well, like, are we on the same page with these goals? What about the time frame? And when you start setting goals and all of a sudden you show the person that maybe isn't as invested in the finances why this is so important and we can
Mm-hmm.
start to learn and all that, it's things that people don't think about every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of got this go 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 attitude, right? In this country,
Yeah.
especially, it's just work 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 work. Go pick up the
Mm-hmm.
kids, eat dinner, work work work, put them to bed, and we never shut our brains off to stop and realize if we just sit down for a minute, get on the same page. It doesn't have to be every day finance review and every hour and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but like Sunday nights maybe or something when the kids are in bed. Hey, let's spend an hour and figure out in the next week or two what we need to do, how we're gonna do it
Make it
and
part of your routine.
make a part of your routine. If it's
Yeah.
on the calendar, someone said this to me, and they'll know who it is if they hear it. If it's on the calendar, um, it gets
It's
done.
gonna happen. It
It
gets
gets
done.
done.
Yep.
Start
Yep.
putting things on your calendar, send reminders. My wife sent me 100 reminders the other day on all those things that are coming up with my daughter, my son, and all this other stuff. I accept them, I accept them, I accept them. It gets on the calendar. That way, ding, it rings an hour before or 10 minutes before or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, gives you notification. So if you guys keep reminding yourselves that you guys both have the same goals, let's get there, let's discuss it. And someone said to me something the other day as well, said basically, hey, we have we have the funds, we have the goals that we want to do, but we still got X, Y, and Z, and we're still not getting there. And we need
Mm-hmm.
hopefully a third party to look at it. And that's the key. Is like it's hard to talk to people within your four walls, right? You don't always want
Mm-hmm.
to sit down and admit to your spouse, I don't know anything about finances. I got
Mm-hmm.
business debt. I got this debt. I mean, it's hard to look at someone and say, I screwed up, or maybe, we screwed
Yeah.
up. Like, how do
Yeah.
we
I
overcome that?
I
So,
always see I always see it. I always see someone like for us, as financial coaches, I always see someone that's has raised up their hand and say like I need help with my money. And when they
yeah.
show you all like their numbers, it's like them getting naked in front of you. Like
Oh,
I just feel that it
excuse me.
feels like that for them, right?
Right.
So I just, for those of you who are listening and maybe have thought of going to a financial coach, you just know that we have been in your shoes and we know
Yeah.
how it feels. So um and I know Brian and I know myself, like we approach this with the most care possible because we know money is can be very sensitive. So when you said that, it just reminded me because I see it. I think of it like that, like somebody just getting naked in front of you, um, because it feels like that. It's very
And
real.
people are embarrassed like they're
Mm-hmm.
naked, like they're embarrassed about some things that they
Mm-hmm.
chose in their past.
Yeah.
But to kind of piggyback on your story, my story is all over my website. I've told it 100 times. But like looking back on anything that I would have changed, I woke up in a day. I woke up one day in 2000 and let me see, I just finished my master's. So this was actually after we got married in 13. So this was like 2014 and maybe 13, 14. And my wife looked at me and said, "Hey, you have 70K in student loan debt. We want to start a family and start adopting here in the next year or two. That's getting in the way." Plain and simple. And,
Mm-hmm.
looking back at it, it was, and we just made a plan to aggressively attack it. And we were not, I said this before, and I want people to understand because it's important with inflation in the last few years. Everyone doesn't think they have enough money and stuff like that. I was at the time in 2014, excuse me, I was just being promoted to an assistant manager in retail, guys, and I was
Mm-hmm.
making before I got promoted, it was like $14.50 an hour. And then I made 17 or 17.50 an hour when I got promoted to assistant manager back in 2014. I had student loan debts. I had my wife who was like substitute teaching and just getting into the academic advising field. So we did not have as much money as everyone thinks that
Mm-hmm.
we did. And we found a way. I mean, we had a little bit of savings help from her grandma, but we found a way to do all that, and then we adopted children, in 2017 and in 2020. You guys, adoption is not cheap. Like, I mean, children are not cheap, period, when they
No.
grow up. So
Congratulations though for that.
yeah, thank you. And so my point is like we came from a point where I wasn't always on the same page of finances. My wife taught me a lot when we first met in 2010 and 11, and that's where I got so interested in this. And we were in a position, me and Lupe, that she just mentioned hers that, when going back, we made some mistakes and we just want to help people avoid those mistakes going forward. And if
Mm-hmm.
there's any suggestions that we can do and coaching that we can do, that's the point of this is having a third party saying, "Hey, there's not one way to do it. Obviously, let's coach it the way that works for you and your spouse and you and your partner.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been here, we can relate. So it's okay."
Yeah, 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 100%. And also for those couples that are engaged, right? And maybe you
Hmm.
guys are not seeing eye to eye. I would say to really, really assess your situation because if you guys are in like, such different states of mind when it comes to money and you're not married yet and you are already having arguments around that, I would highly suggest to sit with somebody like Brian or myself, someone
Yeah, someone that
that
knows
can help you.
finances. Yeah, a
Yes,
planner or somebody that's going to give you some outside
yes,
perspective.
because the worst thing you can do is to bring that into your marriage. If you can tackle that before getting married and get yourselves in the same page. Because if you guys meet with a financial coach and you still are not eye to eye, one
Hmm.
doesn't see the importance of getting out of debt, doesn't see the importance of like managing your money,
Yeah.
just want to live like careless, do you really want to marry that person,
Right.
right?
It's
Like
a
it's
it's a realistic question. Like, I
yeah,
mean, and I
yeah.
think I think that's nailed right on the head, Lupe. So I do want to dive in. I don't want to keep everybody, too long here, but I do want to dive into the second part of our conversation here. And because you had given me an example the other day on text of kind of, someone you're working with. We won't, go into the details of that, but it starts with the journey at the beginning, getting on the same page, understanding like, is this the person I like the situation I want to be a part of, the rest of my life? That's important. But then eventually, like, not just kind of sitting back after you get married and getting lazy, I think is my point, and kind
Mm-hmm,
of drawing yourself backwards when you had already maybe made progress at this point, and understanding that once you get older, you both need to kind of be on the same page because now we're thinking about health, right? We got to realistically think about things that might happen. Someone might get hurt, someone might be permanently disabled, Um, person passes away. Are you going to be ready? And I saw this too much in banking, and I know you want to touch on this real quick because you told me.
mm-hmm,
I saw this too much in banking where the other person would come back in and say, my husband, my wife passed away. They did all the work. I got all this paperwork. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't understand finances. I see it too many times, you guys, even in early ages too, where it's just like, I don't know. My wife does everything. I don't know. My husband does everything. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
so what do you want to touch base on that, Lupe? Because I know you got something to say about this. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, it's these are things that younger couples don't see. They only see what they see now and they live in the now. But if you don't start proactively working together as a couple for your future, then your future is gonna, who knows how it's going to look. Um, I've had this couple, sweetest couple. I love them. I started working with both of them, but one of them has gone down in health, and now I'm just working with the wife. The wife had never managed the finances, and now she's having to learn everything at an elderly age. She's over 70 years old, and I just see the frustration and the struggle that she's having. And um and this all could have been avoided if this was handled years back, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, but like I told you via, our communication, one thing that I've learned is that it's never too late to get
Never.
a hold of your finance. Even when you're in your 70s, it's never too late.
Right.
Because I've also heard a lot of, people during that age that like, they kind of been living the way they've been living and they're set on their ways. But I am so proud of this couple because they've, you know, put their pants up and really got a hold of their finances. They have a good emergency fund now that they've never had in the past. They've been
Cool.
able to buy some things cash that they could never do in the past in their 70s,
Wow.
right? And now, now the wife is taking charge of the finances. Um, I just, I guess my whole point with this is to say that it's never too late to learn, no matter what age you're in. And you just don't know where your spouse or where you both are going to be in your, as you enter your golden years. You just don't know. And if you're not prepared now with everything that comes with it, your health, your will, your everything that comes with it, prepare it now, that when you're younger, so that those years are really golden and not tainted, or I don't know if
Yep.
that makes sense, but
No, that does. I mean, my personal coaching, I've just kind of looked back at the stats the last year or so. I would say the median age that I've been working with people is 40 to 45, median. So, I mean, I got some 50 and 60-year-old people that are coming to me saying, "Hey, we got to start all over. Like,
mhm,
something, like, we got to figure out our retirement. We have nothing. We have this, we have that." I mean, they're willing to put the effort in. And some of the youngers, some 20s here and there, and a lot of millennials. I'm a millennial, so, I like focusing on millennials as well too, because I've been there, done that. And it's mostly just for me, it's just you got to look to the future. I mean, you got to look to the future. But you also got to live in the moment too, I think. I think that a lot of
there needs
us,
to be a balance, right?
right,
Like
I
there
think a
has
lot
to
of
be a
us are
balance.
so darn focused on everyone saying, you got to have this much by 70. You got to have retirement. You got to have the average lifespan 75, 76. What if you don't make it to 70? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you also have to live, I know people that get to 70 years old and said, "Hey, I worked my whole life, worked my brains out, and I never got to go to Europe, or I never got to do this or that." It's like, okay, well, let's find like a fine balance, like Lupe say, where you can do everything. You can build that budget back up. You can worry about retirement. You can help your kids out in college or whatever it is. You can go on vacation every once in a while, and we can pay down debt and have the emergency savings. It's just constant. I've been talking about. There's 5 or 6 things coming at every single person that they have to do this, they have to do that. It can all be done, but you need an outside perspective. And that's not just pitching me and Lupe. That's like anybody that is sometimes outside your four walls, just saying, "Hey, we got to look to the future." You keep saying, I don't like, you're looking at your numbers and you're like, how am I going to do all of this? Like, I know where
Hmm.
the frustration is. and I understand it, but it can be done. It takes patience. That's what people have to understand. It takes time. You don't save $1 million in like a year or anything like that.
No, no.
You don't pay unless you're lucky. You don't pay 30 or $50,000 off of debt in a year either. It's gonna take some time. We're gonna get
Yeah, it takes
there.
time. Yeah, you don't
But
start working out today and get a six pack tomorrow.
right, exactly.
That's,
The personal trainer fear theory, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's gonna take time. The results aren't gonna be overnight, but it's important for both y'all to get on the same page because you never know what your future brings. And I know you want a great future. Everyone does,
Hmm.
right? They
We
want
all
to
do.
have their
Yeah.
kids or their grandkids not have to worry about them when they're 70 years old and like they can just live and give their grandkids things and
Hmm.
buy them sweet presents and take them on vacation and then, have a peaceful rest of their life. They don't want to have to worry at
Hmm.
70 years old that I don't have any money and I still have a credit card I use and like all I got is Social Security or whatever the thing is.
Hmm.
They don't want to worry about that. Just
Yeah.
my thoughts.
Yeah. No, they're valid. I mean, we live in a society that it's very short-term thinking
Yeah.
and instant gratification and not so much
Mhm.
long-term thinking and delay gratification, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that. And you see it online, you see it, it's just the way we live. But yeah, yesterday I went live on my Instagram and I gave the example of um I was talking about why is it so hard to change um, and sometimes it's because we crave that short term, that instant gratification. And I give the example of someone that smokes, right? Someone that's I don't smoke, but someone that smokes, they know that in the long run,
Gonna
it's
hurt.
gonna it's gonna hurt their health. But instantly they get stress relief instantly, knowing that in the long run their health is gonna suffer. But they still do it, right?
Spending
And same
habits,
with money.
spending habits it's an addiction,
Yeah.
you guys. It is. It
Same with
is.
money. Yeah.
Cigarettes are addiction, gambling's addiction, alcohol's addiction.
Hmm.
Spending on credit cards is an addiction. You have to overcome the addiction in order to
Hmm.
get to the next future step of your life, I think.
Yeah. 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 It's just I don't know. It's
That's a
our
good comparison. I like that though.
the way our brains work. It's I mean it's incredible. I just it's just crazy how our brains work and how we get like addicted to certain things and how our habits are built, like all that. Like I highly recommend for people to really kind of like assess what their habits are on a daily basis, especially with
Yeah.
money, right? Because we're talking about money. Like, how do you in the morning do you run out of your house and the first thing you think of is like, drive through, get a
Starbucks,
coffee,
right? Yeah, go to
Starbucks every
Starbucks.
day? Yeah, like but a lot of people do it
They don't
automatically,
think
right?
they're out of
They don't think
habit.
they just
They're
do
already
it. Yeah,
used to running out the door,
yeah,
grabbing my Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, going to work, and then oh, I didn't pack my lunch. Oh shoot. Well, yeah, well, I'll just grab
yeah,
my lunch. And yeah, it's a
yeah,
habit. It is.
yeah, yeah. So I would encourage for those of you who are listening to become more aware of what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yep.
And maybe, instead of going every day out for coffee, make yourself coffee maybe 3 times a day. And those 2 days that you don't, put the money aside and see how much it builds up, right? You may think it's not
Just
a lot,
try
but
it. Try it for a month or
try
so. You
it.
never
You
know.
never know. Try it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but it's amazing how our brains work automatically, right? Like we're kind of autopilots in many things that are not healthy for us, but we still do it because we're familiar with those things.
Yeah.
We're comfortable. We're comfortable.
James Clear,
Oh,
Atomic
I love his
Habits.
book.
Atomic
I love
Habits,
his book.
everybody. It's not just for financial people. Trust me. He talks
Yeah,
all
yeah,
about general habits that,
yes,
just like she
yeah,
said. That's the first thing I thought of that.
yeah.
Um, well, this was fun. I'm gonna keep it right timely. I'm glad we had this conversation. Hopefully, this is very beneficial for a lot of people listening, thinking about the future, where to start, where to
Yeah.
think about in the end, all the things that are kind of in between, getting
Hmm.
on the same page and everything. Thank you for coming on, Lupe. How can people find you? I'm gonna post it obviously all in the comments and all that, but where do they look for you? Where do they look for a Lupe sign?
Yeah. No, thank you again for having me, Brian. This was fun.
Yeah.
You can find me at in Instagram. That's my main platform at Money Renovation.
Awesome. Money Renovation. And yeah, she's a phenomenal financial coach. We've had many discussions, me and her, and a lot of us have the same personalities and have the same beliefs in money, and that's what I love having a large part of our group on in the financial community. So yeah, that was awesome. I'm glad everybody
Yeah, thank
listened
you.
in today. Hopefully this was great. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode of the Couples Money Revelation podcast. As always, stay positive and stay blessed. Enjoy the rest of your day.